UFC Fight Night, Hernandez versus Pereira this weekend from the UFC Apex. It is the 99th UFC Fight Night from the Apex, and we are marching closer to UFC Apex 100, the event you've all been waiting for. Now, we did have UFC Apex 100 earlier this year with Tatsuro Taira and, Alex Perez in the main event, but that was the 100th total card in the Apex. Now we are approaching Apex Fight Nights 100, because if you remember, they had some pay-per-views in the Apex. I've got Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier was in the Apex. But anyways, we're in the Apex. We go from fights like DC Stipe 3 to Michel Pereira taking on Anthony Hernandez, which is a good fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm really happy this is getting the main event spot. I think it's a good fight for the main event, for Apex card too. And honestly, actually, no, I was going to say this Apex card is not very good. I was going to say, honestly, it is good. It's not very good. Apex 100, UFC Vegas 100 is going to be a good card. This one's just kind of 11 fights in this card this Saturday night. And folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. Earlier today, we posted our ALCS and NLCS predictions for the MLB playoffs. Obviously, the Dodgers and the Mets in the NLCS, and the Cleveland Guardians and the New York Yankees in the ALCS. And of course, we have the Contender Series coming up. But I butchered that. We will have our college football picks later this week as well on Tuesday. We will have our NFL predictions on Wednesday, and we will have our PFL Battle of the Giants predictions with Francis Ngannou and Hernan Ferreira for the heavyweight super belt championship. Because the PFL has a heavyweight championship that's about to be won by it's Denis Goltsov's fighting in the championship fight. I don't know why there's multiple heavyweight championships, and Ryan Bader still has the Bellator heavyweight championship. Regardless, Ngannou, Ferreira's on this card, Larissa Pacheco, Chris Cyborg, AJ McKee, Paul Hughes, and the Bellator middleweight championships on the line between Johnny Eblen and Fabian Edwards. So there's some fights in that card. That's coming. That prediction video is coming at you on the channel on Monday. But first, let's do the Contender Series. And no, that's not the Contender Series. It's the final week of Dana White's Contender Series. It's, of course, the 10th episode of 10. And it sucks because I like the Contender Series on Tuesday nights. But let's get 5 more winners here from the Contender Series. We've been picking this at about a 75% rate so far this year. I'm just saying, we've been on fire on the Contender Series. Last week we went on the Contender Series in UFC, we went 14-3 combined. We picked Brandon Royval as a plus 260 dog to go beat Tatsuro Taira, and it went the way exactly I predicted it. Royval by decision. He's going to find a way to stuff takedowns and just steal 3 rounds in the feet. Anyways, let's get on to the Contender Series. Muhammad Otto takes on Jonathan McKelf in this fight. Probably butchered it. We're going with Muhammad Otto to win the fight. He's from Canada. Now, I'm usually a little hesitant picking guys from Unified MMA, and just Canadian regional guys, they're not great sometimes. I think Otto's better than Jonathan McKelf in this fight. I do like what we've seen out of Otto. I understand, again, Unified MMA, sometimes you get some weird prospects, but he's been able to go out there, pick up aggressive finishes, and just get fighters out of there really quickly. I think Otto's able to go out there and pick up the first round knockout here to start off the Contender Series, and I think he's going to get a UFC contract. Now, this pick might be a little controversial. It's going to be a hot take. I'm taking Leslie Hernandez to beat Julieta Martinez, and I'm taking Hernandez to win the fight by decision. Julieta Martinez has not fought a good fighter yet. Now, Leslie Hernandez, okay, she hasn't really beat anybody all that great either, but she's coming off a victory over a 4-2 Jade Durand in LFA 3 months ago. Now, she has not been fighting the best fighters in LFA, but she's still been in LFA. Look who Julieta Martinez has beat. Let's look at this. A 3-5 fighter by armbar. A 7-0 fighter, Fatima Juarez. I've looked into Fatima Juarez. She has not beat a fighter with a winning record yet on her resume, so I don't care that she's 7-0. Okay, a 1-3 Lorena Quiroz, an 0-1 Nadia Villarraga, and then a 3-5 Paula Garay. Yeah, I'm fading Julieta Martinez. She doesn't get into 15-minute scraps. She's always the better fighter. She's always able to get her opponents out of there, and she's only 20 years old. They have built her right, but she's in here with a 26-year-old Leslie Hernandez who has been the full 15, who has, again, sure, Martinez has more experience, but Hernandez has fought the better fighters and has been in more dog fights. I think she's going to, again, get Martinez deep into this fight. I think Hernandez will win it. If she's able to escape the first round, give me Leslie Hernandez to beat Julieta Martinez by decision. Next up, Yadier Del Val taking on Antonio Montero. Give me Del Val to win the fight. Give me the Cuban to take it by decision. This is in the featherweight division. Montero has just been beat too many times for my liking. Over in, he's from Shooto, right? Yeah, he's lost 4 times in Shooto. Again, he's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's been looking really good. I just think Delval should have the better striking in this fight. Obviously, Montero is going to be the aggressive grappler in this one. It's a clash of styles, really. Delval doesn't have the best knockout power. That's why I don't think he's going to go out there and get the finish. I have him to win the fight by decision. But Montero will look to get the fight down. Delval should be able to keep it on the feet, and I think Yadier Delval will win the fight and beat Antonio Montero by unanimous decision. Next up, Nick Picchini, I probably butchered it. He was on the Contender Series earlier this year. He went out and beat Jack Duffy. Now, Dana White, ultimately Dana White's opinion matters more than the judges. Dana White said, you know what? I thought Jack Duffy won the fight. So he wanted to do Nick and Jack Duffy for their rematch on this card. And it was supposed to happen, but Duffy had to pull out of the fight. So now you get Nick taking on Luis Gurul in this fight. Gurul, I think Picchini still wins the fight. I'm taking him to win it by decision. Now, I don't know if Picchini really has the style to make it to the UFC. I'm going to be honest with you. He might be in a Torres Finney situation just because, again, he's not the most impressive. He kind of grinds it out on the ground. He's good. And does he deserve to be in the UFC? Probably. He's going to be 8-0 with the victory, beating a 9-0 guy. But my concern is, Picchini doesn't fight all that aggressively. He goes in there, gets takedowns, and kind of lays on guys. He will look for submissions, but it's just not all that impressive, and it's not going to wow you on the Contender. So unless he's able to get a sub in this fight, I don't think he gets the contract. I think he wins. He's the way better wrestler, and he should be able to get this fight down. But again, I don't know if he's able to, again, get the contract. But the UFC needs flyweight, so they should take him. Give me Nick to win the fight by decision. As we go into our final fight, Geraldo Souza takes on Nick Klein. Souza should win the fight. He's the way better striker. He's got the better kickboxing. Klein does just concern me. He hasn't fought the best guys. He beat Colin Huckbody, but that's his only good win. He lost to a 2-1 Doran Dokaj. I probably butchered that. He's got a couple wins in LFA, but he got his last wins coming off of Motor City Championships, where he beat a 22-21 Corey Simpson. Nick Klein hasn't fought anybody, and yeah, Geraldo Souza hasn't fought the best guys either, but I just think skill-wise, he looks better than Klein. He's got more experience than Klein, and he's got better kickboxing as well. I'm taking the Brazilian and Geraldo Souza to win the final fight of the 2024 Dana White Contender Series run. Give me Souza to win the fight, and he'll get it done by first-round knockout. So that does it for the Contender Series. Let's now move on to this 11-fight card, and we start things off with not that. Here we go. Austin Lane takes on Robles Despaigne. My apologies for all that. It's interesting because Robles Despaigne at one point in time was I wouldn't say he's a cash cow for the UFC, but he was a guy that the promotion was kind of pushing, right? I mean, hell, his first 4 fights professionally, with the exception, or I guess, his first fight lasted 5 minutes. We won it by first round knockout in Titan FC, but then after that, won a fight in 12 seconds, 3 seconds, and 4 seconds. So he comes into the UFC 299 in Miami, Florida, and he knocks out Josh Parisian in 18 seconds. And then he goes to St. Louis and loses to Waldo Cortez Acosta because he can't wrestle. And now, again, the blueprint on how to beat Despaigne's out there. My thing is Austin Lane is not a good wrestler. He just isn't. Now, he did take down Jonathan Deniz once in their fight earlier in 2024. But my thing with Austin Lane is this guy's 0-2 in the UFC. He went 1-1 in the Contender Series. He was the Fury FC champion when Fury FC was at its worst in the heavyweight division. I mean, they were at an all-time low in the heavyweight division at that time. Austin Lane won the championship in Fury off of Juan Adams, which actually wasn't that bad of a win, but then he beat Eric Lunsford, who's coming off a win of over a 43-year-old Eric Odoms, I believe his name was, Richard Odoms. And Austin Lane checks a leg kick, and Lunsford just, knee obliterates, and Lane retains the championship. Then he gets the shot in the Contender Series, beats Richard Jacoby, and all of a sudden he's in the UFC, and he just hasn't been good so far. He got knocked out in the first round against Justin Tafa. Obviously, they the eye poke in the first fight in Jacksonville, but then he loses to Tafa, and then he loses to Jonathan Deniz, and now here we are giving him Robles Despaigne, who is massive, 6'7", and can out-kickbox a lot of guys. Again, we saw Despaigne, I guess, he was fraud-checked in his last fight, right? Waldo Cortez Acosta, will he ever be a UFC champion? No, but I'm still going to make the comp to Andrea Arlovsky at this point. I guess Arlovsky at what Arlovsky is at this point in time, right? Not good anymore. But Cortez Acosta is going to be the next Andrei Arlovsky. Arlovsky's retiring. This is what Cortez Acosta is. He's going to fraud check a bunch of these guys. He's going to, again, be the gatekeeper to the top 15. He's never going to make a run in his own right, but he's going to, again, he'll beat some guys outside of the top 15. He'll get a shot within the top 15, lose, get sent back down the rankings. Like, Wando Cortez Acosta is a fight away from fighting Derek Lewis. Like, that's kind of where he is at this point in time. Is he booked for a fight? He was supposed to fight, he's supposed to fight Chris Barnett. Right, he just pulled out. That was on the last card. Yeah, right. Okay. Regardless, right? Cortez Acosta is like a fight away from fighting Derek Lewis at this point. He'll get knocked down. He'll get sent right back down the rankings, but that's kind of what he is. And he, again, fraud checked Despaigne. Austin Lane has to get this fight out the first round. He has to, again, shoot takedowns and make Despaigne work off his back. I don't trust Austin Lane to do anything. Guys, Austin Lane lost to a 2-0, 1-0 Greg Hardy. That was before Greg Hardy knew anything about how to hit a man. You know what I mean. That's a bad, maybe it's not a bad joke. I don't know. Hopefully I got a couple laughs out of that one. Despaigne should be able to win this fight. And Despaigne should be able to win it pretty easily here. Again, he's a minus 385 favorite for a reason. He's going to go out there and absolutely dominate this fight against Austin Lane. And this fight's not going to be that long. It's going to be, a minute max. Because Austin Lane's just, I don't think he's that high IQ of a fighter. I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's going to try to kickbox with Robles Despaigne. I think he's going to lose. And also, he's not a good wrestler either. Again, Austin Lane's a striker. And Robles Despaigne is, like, the guy. Again, is Despaigne ever going to be a top 15 guy? I truly don't think he is. I think he's got too many holes, even though, yes, the heavyweight division has a lot of guys who just can't wrestle. That is very apparent. And Cortez Acosta is not one of those guys. But actually, Despaigne might be able to make a run to the top 15. I think I went over this last time he fought. I was like, all right, this is the ideal pathway for Despaigne to the championship. Because, again, if you just book him right, because there's so many unathletic, horrible heavyweights that he might be able to do that. I don't know. I think he struggles. I mean, again, if he wins, I could see them booking him against Tai Tuivasa. I could see it just because they kind of want to push him at this point. He's 36 years old. But obviously, again, hold on. No, he's in the opener at a UFC Apex card. Never mind. They don't give a damn about Robles Despaigne anymore. They actually don't. Why is this guy fighting the Apex? You could have just threw him on the Abu Dhabi card next week. They're in Edmonton in 2 weeks. He's not even on Apex 100. This is horrible. This is really bad. Robles Despaigne by first round knockout. Obviously, again, the UFC doesn't care about Robles Despaigne anymore. I kind of just have that, awakening in my mind. I was like, wait, maybe he'll win the fight, and maybe they'll book him and say, you get Tai Tuivasa. This is your chance to crack the top 15. No, he's fighting Austin Lane not on the main card of the Apex, on the opener at 1 p.m. He's fighting Austin Lane. Oh, he's cooked, dog. He's cooked. Wow, that's bad. I just realized that. Okay, next fight. Melissa Martinez takes on Alice, Ardelean. Guys, this is just the lowest level of UFC fighting that there can be. I don't want to be too harsh on this card, guys. I don't want to be too harsh. But I just have to say it how it is, because I'm f***ing sick of the Apex. Okay? I just am. I'm so sick of it. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. Maybe just talking about a UFC Apex card at 2 in the morning like I am right now is just getting to me. But I'm sick of the Apex, and I'm sick of fights like this. It's a problem, guys. Okay, don't get me wrong. I sat in front of my TV this week. I didn't put the UFC. The UFC wasn't on the TV, but I had the UFC on my phone while I'm watching college football. I'm watching professional wrestling. Shout out Bryan Danielson at his final match. Excellent angle by AEW. It's, John Moxley's the guy. But anyways, I'm sitting there. I'm watching professional wrestling. I'm watching college football, and then I have the UFC on my phone. I still watch, but it's just, guys, Oregon's playing Ohio State. I'm watching a professional wrestling pay-per-view, and then the UFC's in the Apex. I'm watching a sold-out crowd in Eugene, Oregon. I'm watching, 9,000 people in the Tacoma Dome for AEW, and then the UFC has got 50 people in a warehouse. And they're giving me fights like, God, I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. The main event was good. I really liked the main event. I thought it was a great fight, and Revolve looked very good. But the UFC's giving me, just, we're watching, we're watching Chidi Njokuani go beat up, Jared Gooden, who couldn't make weight, right? Gooden missed weight, I think he did. Oh, we're watching, this is the fight I was thinking of. I completely blinked on their names. Julia Pilastri fight Corey McKenna. That or Oregon, Ohio State. Guys, don't get me wrong, I love the sport. But the Apex it's killing me, guys. It's killing me. Ardelean versus Melissa Martinez. Okay, I think Melissa Martinez wins the fight. She's better. Now, again, she lost to Elise Reed, and so that makes her horrible. And again, we will get to Elise Reed. By the way, there are 3 straight women's fights in this card. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Melissa Martinez beat Dirty Hiestand back in 2019, but then she got her UFC contract, didn't fight for 3 years, lost to Elise Reed, and hasn't shown up in 2 years. But she's fighting Ardelean, who's 9-6, who beat Shanna Bannon by split decision. I didn't think she won the fight. So she lost to Shanna Bannon. Again, I didn't think she won. She fought Zhang Wei Li back in 2016, won on a sizable winning streak against fighters who are horrible. And now she's in the UFC. I guess, what does Ardelean do well? I don't know. She can kind of wrestle. That's kind of that's arguably how she could have beat Shanna Bannon. But when the fight was on the feet, she did not know what to do. She's horrible on the feet. Melissa Martinez is a fighter who got dominated on the ground by Elise Reed. God, can Melissa Martinez stuff takedowns of Ardelean? Because Melissa Martinez got ragdolled by Elise Reed. She got knocked down by Elise Reed. Oh, this is a horrible fight. I was going to pick Melissa Martinez. I probably still will, but I'm kind of selling myself here on Ardelean in this fight. Just because all she does is wrestle. That's the only thing she does well. Elise Reed was able to take down Melissa Martinez. And Melissa Martinez, guys, has fought 1 time in the last 5 years. And it's a loss to Elise Reed. She fought better competition outside the UFC, but she's fought once in 5 years. Yeah, I'm going with Ardelean to win the fight by unanimous decision. God, I can't believe I'm picking this woman to win a fight. I'm just basing this off of she fought 4 months ago. She won rounds off of Shanna Bannon, who's not good by any stretch of the imagination, but she's better than these 2 fighters. And Melissa Martinez lost to Elise Reed, and I'm going to go on my spiel about Elise Reed in a second here. Yeah, give me the plus 130 dog. Don't bet on this fight. Just don't bet on it. You can be a degenerate gambler like I am, but just don't bet on this fight. There's, just go buy a foot long from Subway instead of betting on this fight. I don't know. God, these are the type of fights they got me talking about. Like, it's just, man. Okay, and here's Elise Reed. So butter my biscuit. It's time for that's a weird saying I just said, but Jessica Penne, Elise Reed. Elise Reed is horrible at fighting. Again, I don't want to be harsh. I really don't want to be harsh right now. But Elise Reed lost to Sam Hughes. Now, how did Sam Hughes beat Victoria Dudakova? God, Lord knows. Again, usually I don't get this negative about fights, but they've got me talking about 3 straight women's fights. Elise Reed lost her last fight to Lupi Godinez. That was a year ago. That was over a year ago. A lot happens in a year. A lot. Trust me. She lost to Lupi Godinez. Godinez was able to take her down effectively. She knocked her down, submitted her with a rear naked choke. Again, that was a year ago. Before that, Elise Reed beat Jinyu Fry by unanimous decision. Well, Jinyu Fry saw success on the ground against Elise Reed in that fight. Reed won the fight, but Jinyu Fry, who's not very good, was able to take down Elise Reed and see some success there. Loma Lukboni was able to go out there, take down Elise Reed, and get a submission. Elise Reed beat Melissa Martinez, who we just picked against. Elise Reed lost to Sam Hughes, and she got TKO'd by Sam Hughes. How is she still in the UFC? I don't know. Jessica Penne is 14-7. She hasn't won a fight since 2021. Gane and Lewis were the main event of that card back in August of 2021. A lot has happened since 2021. I was in high school when that fight happened. Jessica Penne is now fighting Emily Ducote, Emily Ducote, lost, got submitted by Tabitha Ricci, and now she's going to go fight Elise Reed. She hasn't won a fight again since that Kovacevic fight. She beat Lupi Godinez on Godinez fought that fight at short notice, and Godinez arguably won the fight, so I don't really care about that. I think Jessica Penne is able to take down Elise Reed. I think she is able to. I think Jessica Penne is the better grappler in this fight, and that's what should propel her to victory here. Jessica Penne is 41 years old, which kind of concerns me here, but Elise Reed's 31. That doesn't matter. She's just not good at fighting. Jessica Penne, I think, still at 41 years old, the former UFC title challenger, Jessica Penne, will be able to get Elise Reed down to the ground, and she should be able to wrestle her, and she should be able to win a decision. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm taking the 41-year-old out of Laguna Hills, California. Give me Jessica Penne to beat Elise Reed, and she will get it done by unanimous decision. And now there's another women's fight. Jocelyn Edwards versus Tamara Vidal. I'm not being a misogynist, guys. women's MMA, elite women's MMA is fun. Some of it. Raquel Pennington was just the UFC world champion. But these type of fights, man. Tamires Vidal is coming off back-to-back losses to Montserrat Rendon and Melissa Gatto. For Jocelyn Edwards, she has lost to Nora Canole and Aline Perez. Now, I think Jocelyn Edwards is the better fighter, right? On paper, Jocelyn Edwards is the better fighter. She's 13-6, right? She's coming off that loss to Perez, but she lost to Canole before that too. She went on a little run. She beat Ji Yeon Kim in a fight that she definitely did not win, and then she beat Lucia Puzelova by split decision. I thought she did win that fight, but Jocelyn Edwards has just not been impressive as of late. And now she's fighting Tamires Vidal, who just has never been impressive in the UFC, right? Vidal comes in. She beats Ramona Pascal. Well, she flying knees Pascal, looks great, but then you realize who she beat. She beat Ramona Pascal. Loses to Montserrat Rendon by split decision, gets out wrestled, and then Melissa Gatto outstrikes her, out wrestles her. Gatto wins the fight. Jocelyn Edwards, I think, will be able to wrestle her way to victory in this fight. You know, that's how she came into that fight in Paris a couple years ago against Nora Canole. It was a very wrestling-heavy attack. She would lose in the exchanges on the feet, but, you know, Jocelyn Edwards was able to win again a lot in the wrestling in that fight. And I think that's kind of what she does against Tamires Vidal, right? We've seen Vidal struggle with Montserrat Rendon's wrestling. We saw her struggle with Melissa Gatto's wrestling. The best pathway to victory for Jocelyn Edwards is through the ground in this fight. I think she should be able to do it. I don't be thrown away. Again, don't bet on this fight, but Aline Perez looked very good on the ground against Jocelyn Edwards in that fight. That's fine. Aline Perez, she goes by the female Habib. Habib wouldn't really, Habib wouldn't approve of Aline Perez's behavior, but whatever. And I don't know. I don't really think I do either. I'll be honest with you. I'm with Habib on that one. But anyways, don't be thrown away from the Jocelyn Edwards pick because Aline Perez had success on the ground. She's say what you want about her, in-ring and out-of-ring antics. Aline Perez can wrestle. She can wrestle. She's not a bad grappler, as it was evident in her last fight. I think Jocelyn Edwards is going to go in this fight the way better grappler. And honestly, I think Jocelyn Edwards can probably outstrike Tamires Vidal too. I don't really rate Tamires Vidal that highly. Again, she's 0-2 in the UFC, or 1-2 in the UFC. Again, Ramona Pascal really doesn't count though. She's 0-2 in her last two fights, and yeah, Jocelyn Edwards is that too, but Edwards has fought some decent fighters. I think Edwards is better on the feet too. She's got the reach advantage in this fight. She's the taller fighter. I like her kickboxing more than Vidal. I think she's quicker than Vidal on the feet as well, and on top of that, I think she can really wrestle effectively in this fight. I think everywhere, Jocelyn Edwards is just the better fighter than Tamires Vidal. So give me Edwards to win the fight after we took back-to-back underdogs in women's MMA. We're going to go with the favorite here in Jocelyn Edwards. So the Invicta portion of this video is over. Let's now move on to the men's fights. Brad Katona versus John Matsumoto. Actually, I solved it, guys. That's why Robles Despaigne. The UFC's not done with Robles Despaigne. That's why he's the first fight, because they could not start this card with 3 straight women's fights because nobody would watch. Are you watching? God, let me pull up the college football schedule next week. I don't know what time Texas and Georgia is, but for the sake of my argument, are you going to watch Georgia versus Texas, or are you going to go and watch Alice Ardelean versus Melissa Martinez? Now, again, how many people are going to be, thrown away from Texas and Georgia to watch Robles Despaigne? I don't know, but at least I'll keep an eye on it now, rather than, there's 3 women's fights. I'll get to this card when Despaigne fights in the 4th fight of the card, or when Brad Katona versus John Matsumoto is. It just clicked. I solved it. That's why Despaigne's the first fight of the night. Okay. Regardless, let's go on now to Brad Katona and John Matsumoto here in the bantamweight division. You've got Katona, who's coming at it around a plus 200, plus 190-ish underdog. I butchered that. It depends on where you get that line, but for the Canadian fighter in Katona, he's coming off a win over Jesse Butler. Now, it's a fight that he was 100% expected to win. Jesse Butler was one of the lower-level guys the UFC brought in. I mean, Jim Miller went in there and knocked him out in under a minute, right? Katona is coming off that victory, but he gets John Matsumoto in this fight. And for Matsumoto, he's coming off a guillotine choke win over Dan Argueta in his last fight. Obviously, we just saw Argueta lose to Cody Haddon last night. But for Matsumoto, before that, again, a win on the Contender Series. I don't think he's that bad of a prospect. I really don't think so. Matsumoto is 15-0 as a pro. He's got really good grappling skills, right? Before his way into the Contender Series, he won an LFA by mounted guillotine choke as well. That seems like his, submission of choice. And you look at Brad Katona. Now, Katona is coming off a win, but in the second UFC run, he's 2-1. The Cody Gibson win by unanimous decision, then a loss to Garrett Armfield in Canada, and then beating Jesse Butler in his last fight. Again, the Jesse Butler win, simply put, doesn't do anything for me. The Garrett Armfield fight, Armfield was cracking him on the feet. It was Katona was the one trying to mix it up with the wrestling and was trying to drag that fight down to the ground. To me, this fight between Katona and Matsumoto comes down to who the better grappler is. I've seen Katona out-wrestle before in the UFC. Given that was his first in the promotion, I'm looking at, Merab is the champion now, but Merab was able to dominate Katona on the ground. Hell, Matthew Lopez back in 2018, and was that card in Edmonton or was in Toronto? Holloway Ortega, UFC 231, was able to see a lot of success wrestling Brad Katona. I think John Matsumoto is going to see that same success. Again, you're going to see two pretty good grapplers go in this one. On paper, Katona should be the better wrestler, and Matsumoto should have the better jiu-jitsu skills as a whole. But I think Matsumoto, will he find a takedown, will he not? I don't know, but I think he's going to be able to scramble his way to find positioning here, and he should be able to scramble his way to, find himself in superior position over the Canadian here at Brad Katona. I think Matsumoto has more skills to win this fight. I think he's the better ground fighter. He's obviously the way younger fighter as well, 7 years younger than Brad Katona going into this fight. And I think Matsumoto just inflicts more damage when they're on the ground as well. I like Matsumoto to go out here and win this fight by unanimous decision. Again, he's just the quicker version of Brad Katona at this point in time. Sure, is his wrestling not as good? We will see. But I think Matsumoto has more skills to win the fight. So it's going to be John Matsumoto to beat Brad Katona. He will get it done by unanimous decision. As we go on to our prelim headliner, we're already here. Matheus Nicolau takes on Asu Almabayev. And luckily for Nicolau, Almabayev isn't the best striker. Because, again, any striker is, at this point in time in Matheus Nicolau's career is going to knock him out. He doesn't have a chin at this point, right? Nicolau is coming off back-to-back losses. Brandon Royval knocked him stiff back in 2023 in Kansas City with a knee, put him out. Then Alex Perez knocked him out in his last fight in a main event in April of 2024. Now, Nicolau went on his run, right? He comes back, his second stint in the UFC. He beats Manel Kape in his first fight. Now, did I think he deserved to win that fight? No, he didn't, right? And, UFC's weird, right? Manel Kape beats Kaya Sakura before coming into the UFC. And Manel Kape's got to go fight Pantoja, Nicolau. But Kaya Sakura, who has lost, he beat he's coming off a win over Juan Archuleta, but I believe he's 2-1 in his last 3 fights. Kaya Sakura gets an immediate title shot against Pantoja. UFC's praying Asakura wins that fight, because if he does, he's going to knock out Pantoja. I don't think he's got a chance. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But anyways, for Nicolau, he beats Manel Kape. He didn't deserve to win that fight, but he got it. He beats Tim Elliott, beats David Dvorak, and he beats Matt Schnell, because anybody can knock out Matt Schnell. But at the same time, Matheus Nicolau is turning into Matt Schnell. He does not have a chin at this point. However, again, we said in the open of this fight, Asu Almabayev is not going to be the guy that's going to knock out Matheus Nicolau, because that's just not what he does. He's a very, he's a pace-style wrestler who's going to get in your face, and he's just going to try to, drown you on the ground, and that's what he's done so far in the UFC, right? He fought the 6'1", 125-pounder in his last fight, Jose Johnson, and again, Johnson threw up some submissions, but Almabayev ultimately was able to find his way to the back, and he was able to win that fight by decision. He beat CJ Vergara before that, in Miami at UFC 299. He beat my guy, the Picasso of MMA, Ode Osborne, in his debut in Nashville, Tennessee in 2023. Again, Almabayev will be looking to drown Matheus Nicolau in this fight. I actually think Nicolau has got a decent chance to win this one. I really think it is, because Almabayev, again, is so dependent on that grappling. He's so dependent on the wrestling. And Nicolau, again, that's what he does really well. I think, again, what hurts Nicolau is his striking, and his chin's just not very good at this point in time. However, I think Almabayev still wins the fight. I think Almabayev is just on another level in terms of their wrestling. And I really got to question, where is Nicolau really? Where's the headspace at this point of his career at this point right now, right? Again, you were on the brink, ultimately, of a title shot in his last 2 fights. He fought in the main event against Alex Perez, and the fight before that, he fought Brandon Royval, who ended up fighting again for the championship right after that. Nicolau was just there, and now you lost back-to-back fights, and now you got to fight a Kazakhstani who's 20-2, who's ran through every single guy he's seen so far in the UFC. Again, we saw it last week with Tatsuro Taira and Brandon Royval. We saw that was kind of I don't want to call Tatsuro Taira a fraud, but he got checked, right? He fought a top 5 guy, arguably the number 2 guy in the division behind Pantoja, and Royval beat him. I don't think it's this way, though, with this fight with Almabayev and Nicolau, just because, again, I don't think Nicolau really, I don't really see where he's at this point of his career currently. I think Almabayev's able to out-wrestle him. I think Almabayev will be able to have a pace-heavy approach in this fight. And again, if the fight's ever on the feet, I don't really like Almabayev striking that much, but if he has to, hell, Nicolau's chin's gone. But I think Nicolau should be able to see some success in the feet at least. But on the ground, this is going to be all the Kazakhstanis and Asu Almabayev to go out there and pick up the victory. We like him to go out there and win this fight by unanimous decision. Again, give me Almabayev to remain undefeated in the UFC and run right through Matheus Nicolau. As we go on to our main card, oh my goodness, we have got Darren Elkins taking on Daniel Pineda, excuse me. You've got a 39-year-old Daniel Pineda taking on a 40-year-old Darren Elkins. Now, I respect this fight. This is going to be a good fight that I'm actually somewhat excited for. It is a shame that these two guys, these two veterans, at this point in their career in the featherweight division have to fight in front of 50 fans in a warehouse instead of, again, you could have just booked them on the Edmonton card in a couple weeks. The UFC's going, I don't know if these guys want to go to China. They're going to China in a couple weeks. There's going to be a card in Tampa at the end of the year, and yet Elkins and Pineda are fighting in the Apex. And Daniel Pineda is a guy who has a 100% finish rate in every single fight Daniel Pineda has ever won in his career. You see those 28 wins? All of them by finish. 9 by knockout, 19 by submission. Now, he's lost back-to-back fights to Alex Caceres and to Nathaniel Wood. Those are just tough fights, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, these are the guys. Darren Elkins is the type of fighter that Daniel Pineda should be fighting at this point of his career. I like the matchup. I really do. I mean, Darren Elkins is coming off of a win over TJ Downtown Brown, who just got released by rear naked choke. Before that, lost to JSP, Jonathan Pierce, who just lost, but it's fine. Beat Tristan Connolly before that, lost to Cub Swanson before that. But again, you know what Darren Elkins brings. Hell, he's the damage. And Darren Elkins, again, he will bleed in every single fight he's in. I think this just has all the making of being just a veteran, just stand and bang type fight. Sure, both these guys have wrestled some in their past couple fights. Elkins has done it, right? He did it in his victory over TJ Brown. I kind of hope, honestly, that he doesn't do that in this fight. Doesn't do that in this fight with Pineda. Pineda's got a ground game, but I just want to see these two guys trade. Again, kind of sucks that one of these old vets I think will probably get knocked out. Well, Elkins doesn't hit that hard. If Elkins wins, we'll just be kind of drowning out Pineda on the feet and getting him in this war of attrition where they're just trading back and forth, and Elkins is just the last one standing, or Elkins is the one who just has more gas left in the tank at the end of the 15 minutes. But I kind of just want to see these two guys trade. I hope they do. Both these guys have been wrestling recently, but I kind of just want to see a stand-up fight here because, again, Elkins is going to bring it. Elkins refuses to go down, but Pineda hits hard, man. I understand the guy's 39 years old, but Pineda hits hard. Give me Daniel Pineda to win the fight. I like Pineda over Elkins here. He's a favorite? Yeah, he should be. Give me Daniel Pineda to win the fight by second round TKO. Again, Darren Elkins is going to refuse to go away. I don't know if this is the last fight for Darren Elkins. I don't think it's Daniel Pineda's last fight, but I maybe think it is Elkins'. Actually, no. In all fairness, Elkins has seen a lot more success recently than Pineda, but just Pineda has been fighting better guys compared to Elkins. Regardless, if it is his last fight, if it's not, I hope it's not in the Apex for either of these guys. But give me Daniel Pineda to win the fight. I think he's able to go out there. I think he's able to outstrike Elkins. I understand, again, Elkins will be in his face, but technically, sound-wise, Pineda's just the better striker, and Pineda's got more power as well. And on the ground, too, yeah, both these guys have been wrestling recently, but Pineda's got submissions. He's got 19 in his career. I'm not too concerned with Daniel Pineda winning a grappling fight against Darren Elkins. So give me the Pit, yeah, that's his nickname. Give me the Pit, Daniel Pineda, to go out there and eventually just find that big shot and put away Darren Elkins in the second round. Again, 100% finish rate. I expect that to continue on Saturday night. Give me Daniel Pineda to go out there and win the fight by second round TKO. Next up, we got a Brady Hiestand versus Jake Hadley here in the bantamweight division. Hadley's coming off of his win in his bantamweight debut, at least in the UFC, over Callan Lawfran. Now, he missed weight in that fight by a pound. He weighed in at 137 at UFC 304, but he went in there and beat Callan Lawfran by unanimous decision. Something I didn't think was going to happen. Hadley's just, his pacing and his conditioning was better in that fight. Hadley was just doing the damage. That's one way to put it. But he was inflicting damage onto Callan Lawfran at the end of the third round. Lawfran really just didn't have much to offer back, and it just kind of felt in that entire fight that Jake Hadley, was just in control. Now, for Hadley prior to that, in the flyweight division, back-to-back losses to Charles Energy Johnson in St. Louis, and then a loss to Cody Durden before that. Now, I think the Cody Durden fight kind of speaks a little bit to what I think this fight's going to be. I understand, again, completely different weight class. That's Jake Hadley at 125 pounds. He, again, is undefeated in the UFC at 135, even though he missed weight in his 135-pound fight. But, you know, I think we can kind of take something out of that fight with Cody Durden and Jake Hadley. And I get it. Durden's a really good wrestler, but Durden was able to go out there. He was able to effectively shoot takedowns on Jake Hadley. He was able to have 8 minutes of control in that time in that fight. Hadley reversed it once in the second round, and Hadley, again, his way of trying to, and this is kind of what Jake Hadley does, his way of trying to reverse positioning and his way of trying to find a way on top. And honestly, Brandon Royval does this too. He just tries to throw up submissions. He just tries to find a sweep through submissions, but if he doesn't get it, then he just ends up flat on his back for the rest of the round, right? He will try to scramble, he will try to find a way out, but he'll just throw up submissions in doing so. And these submissions really aren't threatening all that much. And again, a lot of guys do this in all fairness. It's just, you know, they're throwing up submissions for the sake of throwing up submissions because then they can sweep with it. I just think Hiestand too good of a grappler for Jake Hadley. Personally, that's just how I feel. Brady Hiestand, again, what he did to Garrett Armfield, really good fight, but he's able to go out there and win it. Garrett Armfield was damaging Brady Hiestand on the feet, but Brady Hiestand was able to eat that damage and go back and, you know, effectively wrestle and eventually get that rear naked choke in the third round. I'm a little bit concerned with Hiestand because he did take a lot of damage in the Garrett Armfield fight. I mean, that second round was an absolute beatdown for Garrett Armfield against Brady Hiestand. I mean, just look at the stats, 41 significant strikes, 1 knockdown, but that doesn't do it justice for what Garrett Armfield did in that second round against Hiestand. That's why I'm a little bit concerned. That fight against Garrett Armfield was just a couple months ago. I'd say like 3-4 months ago now. It was in June. Okay, that is actually longer than I thought it was. But, you know, again, Hiestand just came off of that war against Armfield. Jake Hadley's another one of these guys which is really active too. Again, fought in May in St. Louis on that against Charles Johnson, then turned around in July to fight Lafran. Both these guys are really active. But I think Hiestand still wins it. Again, I don't think Jake Hadley has the punching power to put away Brady Hiestand. Again, as of, oh yeah, again, Hiestand took all this damage and maybe Jake Hadley's able to catch him. No, I don't really think Hadley has that. At least, again, he hasn't showcased that in the UFC. Yeah, he has a TKO victory, but it's a body shot to Malcolm Gordon, and Malcolm Gordon was just, you know, one of the lower level UFC flyweights that they brought in. I think Hiestand's able to win this fight. I think he's able to wrestle Jake Hadley. I think he's able to get him down. I just think he's going to give Hadley a long night. Because, again, I feel like it is somewhat similar to Jake Hadley's fight against Cody Durden. I'm not saying that Brady Hiestand has the pure wrestling skill of a guy like Durden. Because, again, Durden can really go in there and scrap with you on the ground. But I just think Hiestand's going to be the more active fighter. He knows when to get takedowns when he needs to have them. Like, again, in that Garrett Armfield fight, when Brady Hiestand needed to have a takedown against Armfield, he got it in the third round, eventually got the submission. I just think his opportune timing with his wrestling and just as a whole, I don't think Jake Hadley's that much better than him on the feet. On top of that, I don't think Hadley is able to effectively stuff takedowns like that. I think Brady Hiestand's able to go out here and win the fight. I think it's a big victory for him. Brady Hiestand improves to 9-2 with a unanimous decision victory over Jake Hadley. As we go on to our featured bout, again in the flyweight division, it is, or actually that's a bantamweight fight. Now we're to the flyweight division. We have got Charles Energy Johnson. Just talked about him beating Jake Hadley a couple fights ago, and he's taking on a Sumudaerji, who at one point Sumudaerji was in the top 8-ish of the weight class, if I do believe. But now, after back-to-back losses to Matt Schnell and Tim Elliott, here he is taking on Charles Johnson, who gets a shot to crack into the top 15 for the first time. If he's not already in the top 15, I don't think he is. I can check really quickly. I don't think, yeah, he's not. Sumudaerji's not in the top 15 either now. But still, regardless, I mean, this is, again, a way for Charles Johnson to continue to build his rank and to get ever closer to the top 15. And he's more than expected to win this fight. He's a minus 210 favorite compared to Sumudaerji, who's a plus 170. You look at Tapology, Charles Johnson is 90% picked, and out of those 90%, 27 are going with him to TKO or knock out Sumudaerji on Saturday. 10% of voters going with Sumudaerji in this fight, and it makes sense. Charles Johnson 16-6. This guy's been on a run, right? After losing 3 straight fights to Ode Osborne, Cody Durden, and Rafael Estevam, you thought, you know, he might be on his way out of the UFC. I thought Azat Moscom was going to beat him, and I thought Charles Johnson was going to get cut from the promotion. No, he beats Azat Moscom by unanimous decision. Turns it around quickly, beats Jake Hadley in his hometown in St. Louis by decision, and then knocks out Josh Van in Denver in a war that he wins in the third round. That, to me, showcases truly how good Charles Johnson is. I've seen him in dog fights before. His last fight before heading to the UFC, He fought Charles Mota. He ends up winning a 5-round war when, again, he was just the better guy in that fight, but he drowned out Carlos Mota late in that fight, and he made Mota quit because Charles Johnson refused to go away. Charles Johnson was constantly pressuring him in Mota's face. And again, that's just what Johnson does. He's a good boxer who's going to remain in your face in the entire fight. He's just going to keep throwing and keep unloading. And ultimately, again, he was able to catch Joshua Van in that fight, but Johnson was fighting a very good fight up until that. I'll make the case Josh Van won the second. I don't think that's too out of the take, but it was 1-1 going into that third, and immediately Charles Johnson, connects in the button and puts away Josh Van and wins the fight. Just when you thought he might have been out of the fight because of the way Josh Van finished and closed that second round against Johnson. Now Johnson gets Sumudaerji, who we haven't talked about yet, but you know what you're going to get out of Johnson, a very good striking game, and ultimately that's what Sumudaerji kind of tries to do as well. I mean, Sumudaerji doesn't really shoot takedowns. He's shot one in his UFC career. He got that only takedown that he's ever shot against Andrei Sokolov back in 2019. That's the only takedown he's ever shot. This is going to be a striking fight. I just don't see how Sumudaerji wins this. Mudaerji's record was always a little bit padded. Don't get me wrong. He was in the top 15 at one point. He's ranked, legitimately, I think he's ranked like number 10. Comes into the UFC, loses to Luis Smoka his first fight in China. Bounces back, beats Andrei Sokolov, beats Malcolm X Gordon in 44 seconds. It was impressive, but Malcolm Gordon just kind of sucks. And then he beats Zaruk Adeshev by unanimous decision, a guy who was 4-3 at the time. And then he loses the Matt Schnell. He had Schnell dead to rights. Don't get me wrong. He knocks down Schnell. It's one, again, it might be the greatest comeback of all time. That fight on Long Island, July 2022, Matt Schnell comes back and chokes Sumudaerji out cold. And then Mudaerji comes back and gets submitted by Tim Elliott. And that, again, that's what's hurt Sumudaerji in the UFC. It's been the grappling. Again, his 3 losses are all by submission. Smoka got him with an armbar, Schnell with the triangle choke, and, Tim Elliott with the arm triangle. There's going to be none of that in this fight. Charles Johnson wants to stand and bang, and he's going to be more than willing, and Sumudaerji is going to be more than willing to exchange in the pocket with Charles Johnson. However, I just don't think it goes well for Sumudaerji, because again, there's no threat of the takedown, which has hurt Charles Johnson in the past. Hell, when he fought Cody Durden shot 11 takedowns on him, or successfully landed 11 takedowns. Ode Osborne got 3, which ended up swinging that fight. Rafael Estevam didn't do anything on the feet in that fight. Johnson outstruck him 72-18, and Estevam's takedowns were still enough to win the fight for him. That's what really hurt Charles Johnson. At the same time, again, it has hurt Sumudaerji as well, but ultimately, I think Charles Johnson's just better than Sumudaerji. Again, both these guys have struggled because of the wrestling that they've faced so far in the UFC. Again, it's not going to be a problem for either guy on Saturday, but I just think Charles Johnson's better. I think Sumudaerji's record's incredibly padded. He's fought nobody good so far, or at least he's beat nobody good, and I think Charles Johnson is just the better guy. I'm taking Charles Johnson to go out there and beat up on Sumudaerji. I think eventually he will get a finish. Give me Charles Energy Johnson by second round TKO. I question where Mudaerji's chin is at. He took some damage in his last couple fights. Actually, no, the Elliott fight he didn't really. It was just a Schnell fight. But regardless, Mudaerji, I don't think he is who we thought he was. And maybe, again, I was a prisoner of the moment, too, when he was 3-1 in the UFC. But, he was looking good in his fights. But he was just beating bad fighters. Again, Sokolov, Malcolm Gordon, Zaruk Adeshev was 3-2 and 3-3 after losing to Mudaerji. Does Zaruk Adeshev still fight? He does. Oh, God, he did get 2 more fights in the UFC. He beat Ryan Benoit. Oh, I forgot that fight happened. He lost to Ode. Yeah, he's done fighting, I guess. Or he was scheduled to fight a kickboxing fight in October. Didn't happen. Yeah, I don't think Mudaerji was ever that great, and I think Charles Johnson really shows us that. I don't think Mudaerji gets cut with the loss here, but he's not a top 15 guy, and ultimately I don't think he's really all that close to the top 15 either. So give me Charles Energy Johnson to finish Sumudaerji on the feet in the second round. We're going with the second round TKO victory for Charles Johnson. Let's go on to our co-main event. Rob Font takes on Kyler Phillips. It is the biggest spot of Kyler Phillips' career. He's 29 years old. He's officially hitting his prime. He's coming off a unanimous decision victory over Pedro Munoz in his last one, and a Hani Barcelos victory as well. And now they give him Rob Font. Rob Font, again, a top 15 guy who is 37 years old and ranked number 10 at Phillips' 12. They're both behind Mario Bautista. God, who definitely did not beat Jose Aldo. I will, God, that's horrible. But yeah, we get Font and Kyler Phillips here. I'm a little bit concerned for Rob Font. He's 37 years old and he's lost 4 to 5 fights. Don't get me wrong, the guys are incredibly tough. Jose Aldo in a main event. Marlon Chito Vera, that was not a main event. No, it was a main event. Lost that fight. Yeah, it was. I forgot. That was a 5-round beatdown. Even though Font was in the fight, but Marlon Vera, every time he touched Rob Font went down. He beats Adrian Yanez. That was his, I still got it performance, but then loses to Corey Sandhagen in the main event, loses to Deiveson Figueiredo by unanimous decision. Don't get me wrong. Again, Aldo, Chito, Sandhagen, Deiveson. 4 really good guys. Figueiredo's, fighting for a chance to fight for the belt next. Jose Aldo should be in the top 5. Marlon Vera, top 10 guy. Corey Sandhagen, top 5 guy. Those are tough fighters for Rob Font. But again, the accumulation of damage that Rob Font has taken in those fights. He's fought 4 really good fighters. And even the Yanez fight, he wins. Yanez was throwing back at him as well. Right? And hell, even Font's main event spot against Cody Garbrandt, he took some shots too. He won the fight ultimately, and Garbrandt had to really just resort to his wrestling because Rob Font was beating him on the feet. But still, that fight too, right? Rob Font's taken some damage and he's fought a lot recently. Well, he's fought many fights. And he's fought some tough fights. He's 37 years old. At some point in time, that's going to catch up to you. And he's taken on Kyler Phillips, who, again, has always kind of seemed like he has had the promotional backing from the UFC. He's always kind of been a guy the UFC's wanted to succeed. He had a mess up in 2021 where he got, majority decision lost to Raulian Paiva, but then he won 3 in a row. Marcelo Rojo by triangle armbar, Raoni Barcelos, Pedro Munoz. It feels like Phillips is finally coming into his own. I mean, he outstruck Pedro Munoz more than 2-1 on the feet. He's a very good striker. He's going to be way quicker than Rob Font in this fight, I believe so. Yeah, Rob Font's got decent skills. He's got good power. The last time we saw him against an up-and-coming guy, he did go out there and knock out Adrian Yanez. I think Phillips is smart enough to stay out the way of big power shots from Font. I think he's able to stay on the outside. They are kind of built like the same fighter, but I do think Phillips is just the technically more sound fighter than at least what Font saw against Yanez. And on top of that, I don't trust a 37-year-old Rob Font to beat Kyler Phillips. I really don't. I think Phillips does win this fight. I like the striking out of Kyler Phillips. And yeah, again, Font being 37 and coming off of all of these tough fights really just does concern me for him. And yeah, Phillips ultimately, he's looked better, but he hasn't, he doesn't go out there and absolutely starch guys, right? I mean, he's beating Munoz by decision. He's beating, Raoni Barcelos by decision. I think he beats Rob Font by decision as well. I just think he wins every single round. I think he's going to be the better striker in this one. He's going to be the quicker striker, and he's going to be more technical as well. Again, Phillips will eventually need to get that marquee knockout finish. It's not going to come here, though. Rob Font has a iron chin that is pretty much impossible to crack. But I'm just concerned a little bit with, again, the quickness out of Font and the skills out of Font at this point in time at 37. That's where I do come to concern. That's why I'm concerned for Rob Font. I think Kyler Phillips wins the fight. I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. So give me Kyler Phillips for the biggest win of his career. He'll crack the top 10 with the victory. Give me Kyler Phillips to beat Rob Font again by unanimous decision. Main event time. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez gets his first main event against Michel Pereira here in the middleweight division. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to say this is a clash of styles, and I don't think that's too hot of a take. Again, Anthony Hernandez is going to try to wrestle Michel Pereira. Michel Pereira is going to try to keep the fight in the feet. And again, currently Anthony Hernandez, keep butchering that. Anthony Hernandez is a -160 favorite. Michel Pereira is a +130 dog. They're both 31 years old. They were born within a week of each other. Pereira on Tapology is, 62% of voters are going with him. 30% of voters are going with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Again, this fight is so dependent on if you think Hernandez can get the takedown or not. Because essentially, that's what he's done in pretty much every single fight he's won in the UFC. He's been able to get takedowns, and that's been Anthony Hernandez's run, right? After losing to Kevin Holland in Jacksonville in 2020, he bounced back, beat Rodolfo Vieira. Again, that was a huge win for Anthony Hernandez because he submitted Rodolfo Vieira in that fight. Then he came back, beat up on Josh Fremd, was able to take Fremd down, just control him on the ground, beat Marc-Andre Berriot, submitted him in the 3rd round, TKO'd Edmund Shabazian by drowning him out and just dominating him on the ground, and then submitted Roman Kopylov in his last fight in Anaheim at UFC 298. Now, that's been Hernandez's run. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, and now he gets Michel Pereira. This is a fight, again, to enter the rankings, basically, or actually, to advance in the rankings. Hernandez is 13, Pereira is 14. For Michel Pereira, he has been on a damn run. He has not lost a fight truly since his first fight in the UFC, or second fight in the UFC to Tristan Connolly in Canada, where he did the whole backflip and, whatnot, and was really just messing around the entire fight, and Connolly beat him. After that, Pineda goes to Rio Rancho, New Mexico. He was beating up on Diego Sanchez. It was a crazy mismatch, but then Michel Pineda just knees Diego Sanchez in the face in the third round. Sanchez knew, hey, I get double my pay if I say I can't fight anymore. He wins the fight by DQ. Michel Pereira comes back, submits Ziliam Imadiev in a co-main event, I do believe, or on a main card fight of a fight night in 2020. Beats Chaos Williams, beats Nico Price, beats Andrea Fiallo, beats Santiago Ponzinibbio, and then now just recently, Pereira has gone on his run where he's just beating guys and smoking them in the first round. Andre Petrosky knocked him out in the first round. Michal Zolshashek submitted him in the first round at UFC 299. Submitted Ihor Potieria at UFC 301 with a standing guillotine choke in 54 seconds. Again, 54 seconds in the Potieria fight, 61 seconds in the Zolshashek fight, and 66 seconds in the Petrosky fight. Pereira has been just absolutely going through guys. If he's going to get a quick finish in this fight against Hernandez, it will be by quick knockout. Ultimately, I don't see it, though. I just don't. Anthony Hernandez, since again losing that fight to Kevin Holland in 2020, he's just been a different guy. Hernandez is wrestling well, again, in that fight against Kevin Holland just struck him quick and knocked him out, right? I mean, again, Hernandez, though, is just Holland beat him in 40 seconds. But again, that's back in 2020. That's 4 years ago now. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez by now is just a much different fighter than the guy that lost to Kevin Holland. I think Hernandez is effectively able to wrestle in this fight. I think he's able to effectively get this fight down to the ground. He's able to, again, I think he's just going to be able to out-grapple Michel Pereira in this fight, truly. I think so. Again, obviously Pereira has the advantage on the feet, but I think on the ground, Hernandez has such a advantage down there. Considering, again, he just fought a guy, Roman Kopylov. Kopylov, I'm not going to say he's the same type of guy as Michel Pereira, but style-wise, right? Kopylov, really good striker. He's got heavy hands. He's a boxer. And Hernandez just walked right through that and was able to take him down. I think he's able to, a certain extent, do the same exact thing to Pereira. Now, Michel Pereira's grappling, don't get me wrong, his jiu-jitsu is levels ahead of what Roman Kopylov's is. That is undoubtedly the case. However, I think Hernandez, again, is able to walk right through that. I think he's able to find a takedown. He's able to get Michel Pereira down. I think eventually, again, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez will get that takedown. Actually, no. I think he gets the takedown early. I think eventually he finds that submission, and I think he's going to get done in the third round. Give me Anthony Fluffy Hernandez just wear out Michel Pereira in this fight. I just think that's going to ultimately, that's what's going to happen here. I think he just wears out Pereira. If Pereira's not able to do his damage on the feet and do all of his wacky stuff on the feet, because again, that's going to be amped up a little bit for Pereira, regardless if this is in the Apex or not. This is his first UFC main event. He's going to try something crazy. I think Hernandez is just able to settle in, do what got him to the dance, wrestle, get Pereira down to the ground, just ground him out, and eventually get that submission, just wear down on Michel Pereira as well. Give me Anthony Fluffy Hernandez to submit Michel Pereira, and he's going to get it done in the third round. I just don't think Pereira is able to walk right through him like he's done recently to these guys. Again, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is much better than these recent guys, and at the same time, I think the longer the fight goes, the more it just benefits Hernandez because of his style and because of the way he is supposed to beat Michel Pereira. Give me Anthony Fluffy Hernandez to win his first UFC main event. He's going to get it done against Michel Pereira by third round submission. So folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC Fight Night Hernandez versus Pereira full card predictions here on the channel. Make sure that subscribe button down below if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks, and make sure to join us again for tomorrow, our PFL predictions, college football, and the NFL later this week as well. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Folks, thank y'all for watching, and Mamba